So the point of the costume is you probably won't be able to take me completely seriously while I'm wearing this. And that's actually related to my topic, which is fools. So fools actually, they took place in a lot of plays, obviously. Shakespeare was one of them. You had Puck from A Midsummer's Night Dream. And these fools, court jesters, were typically shown as very educated. They were funny, but they were funny in the way that they could make people laugh based on other things. They were seen as clever writers, and they'd pretty much be the comedians of today. However, there's a much sadder part of court jesters, and that would be the natural fool. The whole idea of a natural fool was you were laughing at them rather with them. And I'd like to, imagine King Joffrey's wedding from Game of Thrones, where he had a large amount of people with dwarfism imitating kings of that time, and, the crowd found that hilarious. That's essentially what was going on for a lot of natural fools of that time. So this is part of Spain history. In Spain, they were often of Jewish descent, and they were called Jewish fools. Now, they weren't always actively Jewish. Most of the time, actually, they were already converted, but it's still making fun of your own heritage just for a laugh, which is obviously terrible. Now, supposedly they were okay with it because, you were paid money, and that's good, obviously, but, it's kind of hard to say because not all of them were super literate. So in terms of the court jester's outfit, if you were an artificial jester, which is, you were a learned person, you typically wore silk. You wore nice things that people of the time in that court would be wearing. Whereas if you were a natural fool, more an unliked natural fool, we'll say, you would wear the two-pronged hat with bells at the end. That was used to imitate a king's crown, and you would often also have a fake scepter that went along with it. Along with that, you'd probably have loose-fitted clothing that didn't suit you very well. Now, what's even worse about this is a lot of the time, not only were they uneducated, they were often mentally handicapped. They, again, were made fun of because of this. They weren't being laughed at because of jokes they told. They were being laughed at because of mistakes they made or things like that. Not only this, again, you could also be physically handicapped. Will Summer, who I'll go into further detail later, he was often drawn as visibly shorter than other people. And he was mentally handicapped. He had to have multiple caretakers because it was well known that he couldn't take care of himself. And despite this, people saw this as a good thing for the fools because normally you wouldn't be able to get a job otherwise. But if you were a fool in a court, you could make money. You had the ability to wear nice clothing that you wouldn't otherwise get to wear. And well, yes, that is fine. It's still degrading. They were seen, obviously, as members of the family almost. They were respected for their jobs. But even though they were respected, they weren't respected. Not all of them made money, especially in Spain. Natural fools were extremely unlikely you were going to make as much money as if you were a liked natural fool. For example, Alfonso Fernandez Samuel, he was described as the greatest apostate that ever lived, and he got slaps and he got abused. He didn't get fine clothing. He got loose-fitted clothing, and that was up to, age 70 that he was treated poorly. He was a Jewish convert, and he would make fun of his own Jewish heritage to make ends meet, but it was oftentimes not enough. He would still end up with poor living. So the two exceptions I'm going to talk about are Will Summers and Jane. She didn't have a last name, so people would just call her Jane Fool in some readings I found, but just Jane. They were both very well treated in King Henry VIII's court. They were both, however, natural fools. They were both mentally handicapped. They both had multiple caretakers that they needed because they couldn't take care of themselves. And they both had shaved heads. A positive reason for this is because they would also bleach their heads and then have people go up to them repeatedly and say, "I loved you" in 8 Mile. I'm joking, that's not real. But they did have shaved heads, it mentioned. I'm not sure. It's apparently a part of the uniform. I'm not sure why. But again, they were treated nicely, almost as an exception. They were treated pretty much like members of the family. Jane was quoted as having several nice dresses and she had very extravagant tastes in clothing. And Will had a pet monkey. Along with this was their predecessor, Sexton or Patch. He was also a natural fool. He was treated very nicely as well. He had nice clothing, he had his own house, but he also needed multiple caretakers because he was mentally handicapped, and that was just part of the whole deal. In fact, he was given as a gift to King Henry VIII by a cardinal. What I'm gonna will down it to is natural fools were almost treated like pets. You can dress up your pet, you can play with your pet, you can love your pet, but you're still gonna think it's lesser than you. You'll laugh at it because it does things that are funny, that are stupid. And that's how these people were treated. They were treated almost not like humans. And I honestly think that's terrible, and I think it's a part of history that we don't really see, because theater's almost completely imagined jesters and fools as these intelligent people, as these, people necessary for plots and such. But there really is a dark side to the fool's life, and I thought it would be good to talk about it. So